Others have agreed that you can kill the baby even immediately after birth, 24 hours, others 72 hours. So they designed when to kill the human being and when to keep the human being. So it is not now the responsibility of God to keep children, to keep life. It is actually now human beings who are deciding whether they want to keep life or not. Now, let us look at a few people in the Bible and see whether really life is important to God even before someone is born. So I will start, for example, with a reading from Psalms. Psalms 1:9, I think, is known to most people. Psalms 1:9, 1:9 verse 14. Something that I know there are many people who have been able to read that Psalms, and it's a beautiful psalm. But actually, it tells us how much God loved us even before we ourselves were born. Before we ourselves were born. So it says, I praise you so wonderfully, you made me wonderful are your works. My very self you knew. My bones were not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, fashioned as in the depths of the earth. Your eyes foresaw my actions. In your book all are written down. My days were shaped before one came to being. So what the psalmist is telling us is that he will go on to praising the Lord the rest of his life. But the reason why he's doing this is because he understands that even when he himself was not born, God the Father knew him. And he even wrote his days, all his days in his book. That means God had already destined a certain plan for you. And of course, it's the plan that is very clear in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 11, verses 29. It says that God has the good plans for us. And so that's why the psalmist is saying that God saw everything. Even when your bones were being formed, they were seen in the eyes of God. And so what that means is a human life is essential, is life from conception all the way, even before conception anyway. God still has you in the mind. And so it's essential to actually realize that we need to preserve life through and through. Let's also hear what Jeremiah says. Jeremiah tells us something also very important in Jeremiah chapter 1 verses 5. So Jeremiah 1 verse 5 tells us, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I dedicated you a prophet to the nations. I appointed you. What God is saying that imagine He's appointing you before you're born. We appoint only people who are living. But in this case, God appointed you and me even before we were born. That tells you then God values life. And if you read Judges, for example, in this case, Judges chapter 13 verse 5, where God again is giving instructions to the mother of Samson and saying, this son, you should never drink wine and should never touch his head with a razor, because he will deliver the people of Israel. He is already set apart for the work of God. And so that clearly tells us that all of us are already in the mind of God, and therefore life needs to be protected, needs to be, preserved through and through in the womb, whatever the challenges. I was watching Renewal Ministries in America, and there's an auxiliary bishop who was giving a testimony, and he was saying that when he was conceived, when he was, I think, in 21 weeks in the mother's womb, the water broke, and he went to the doctor, said, no, I can't continue helping you because you have to take out this baby, otherwise the baby will come with so many deformities if the baby survives. But then the mother said, no, I want to change the doctor, and they changed the doctor. And after changing the doctor, the bishop was born. And when he was born, the mother says that this son of mine must be in the mind of God, and God must be having a great plan to have kept him. Imagine water breaking at 21 weeks, and then the boy survived through, and he became now a bishop who is really touching the lives of many people today. So what we are saying is life is really important. Sometimes you may think maybe, people like St. Paul and Saul, we know him as Saul before conversion. So if you look at Saul, you may think actually this guy, he was lost, so he was not in the plan of God. But this is what Saul tells us. If you read in the book of Galatians, it's very clear. Galatians chapter 1 verse 15 actually. He says something very important here. So Galatians 1:15, Paul says, maybe I can read up from 14, and maybe from 13. For you had my former way of life in Judaism, how I persecuted the church of God beyond measure and tried to destroy it, and progressed in Judaism beyond many of my contemporaries among my race, since I was even more zealous for my ancestral traditions. But, this is what he says in verse 15, but when God, who from my mother's womb and set me apart and called me through his grace, was pleased to reveal his son to me, so that I might proclaim him to the Gentiles. And of course he continues. What he's saying is that he's telling us, okay, finally, he had gotten lost along the way. He became a zealot. He was so serious about protecting his Judaism. He was, even among his contemporaries, one of the best defenders of their faith. But the moment the father who formed him in his mother's womb set him apart and revealed his son Jesus Christ to him, the life of St. Paul was not the same again. That's why even his name was changed. So what that tells us, me and you, is that human life is sacred. And actually, if you read the Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 2258, it's very clear. It says, I hope I can get to that right away. Yes, this human life is sacred because from its beginning, it involves the active creation, the creative action of God, and it remains forever in a special relationship with the Creator, who is its sole end. God alone is the Lord of life from its beginning until the end. No one can under any circumstance claim for himself the right directly to destroy an innocent human being. So that is what the church teaches us. The Catechism of the Catholic Church tells us that life is really sacred and precious and must be protected. And therefore, when we try to go against that, these children are born, if they survive, they are born with woundedness, because they were already rejected even before they themselves were born. And how many times have I met parents who bring their children and they tell me, Silas, help me. My daughter does not love me. Help me. My son does not love me. We have tried to do everything. We have taken to the best schools, and they still say that they feel rejected. We don't like them. They don't belong. And actually, when I asked the mother what was happening when the child was in the womb, and one of the things they say is that, I got the child when I was in high school. And so my mom told me to go and abort the baby. But when I went to the doctor said, no, I am too young to abort the baby, and anything can go wrong, and I lose my fertility or whatever ability to give birth to babies. So I would rather preserve this baby and later on go back to school. And so they listen to the advice of the doctor, or the advice of a priest, or the advice of a catechist, or the advice of a psychologist who is life-oriented, and so will support you. And so they tell me, now, because I came back home and I told my parents, no, I'm not going to abort this baby, I will keep the baby. But then after keeping the baby, what happens, because there was that initial rejection, that rejection continues to be perpetuated. That it doesn't matter how much you love this person, it doesn't matter how much you love this child, but they will never experience your love until there has been healing which has taken place, and that healing is what we are calling the inner healing, is what heals the inner child. Now, I can really dwell on that point, but I feel like it's important I go on. Now, the other part which is essential, so what people can go through, is being neglected at the point of birth. If a child is neglected at the point of birth, maybe the midwives do not really welcome the baby. Maybe they are tired, they are exhausted, and the baby is just born and they place you wherever on the floor, whatever it is. Or sometimes the mother is going to, sometimes, they feel like they want to go maybe to the loo shortly before, and then in the process, the baby, gets born along the way. So such incidences can actually cause trauma at the very moment this child is being born. So that neglect, or the mother is neglected at the point of giving birth. That's why even Jesus himself, actually, we see, is born in a wooden manner. He is born in a wooden manner because when they tried to look around for a place for him to be born, there was no place whatsoever. Everywhere was full. And Jesus is born among the animals. So that for me, I look at it like already born in a crude world, in an evil world. And of course, that is what Jesus kept on telling us, that in the world there is a father of this world, the devil. And so the world is not good. So sometimes we may encounter those experiences and we are born in those situations. And therefore, as we move on with life, we move on knowing that life is evil. Life is pain. Life is suffering. Life is about rejection, is sorrow, and all those painful experiences. And so you may ask, how does the child know? Yes, the child knows. Look at what the Word of God says in Luke. If you read Luke chapter 1, verses 44, it is very clear that actually a child can tell what is happening around them. We read Luke chapter 1, verses 44. From the moment the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the infant in my womb leaped for joy. So that is now John the Baptist leaping for joy in the mother's womb, in Elizabeth's womb. Why? This child is already experiencing joy. We are told the child was 6 months, because we know, if you read chapter 1, you realize that Mary went to greet Elizabeth 6 months, when she was already pregnant 6 months. So this boy is 6 months, and is rejoicing, is filled with joy, because he has encountered Jesus, who is now the Savior of the world. And so what that tells us is that children know, even when they are not born. So you can imagine how someone has been born and neglected, so they actually know. Their system can record, their senses can record. They may not be able to tell exactly what is that has happened to me, but they will record exactly what has happened in their senses, in their thoughts, in a way, because their thoughts are still developing slowly by slowly. They will record, they will code those experiences. And those experiences are likely to be replayed in their lives later on. The other thing is also born prematurely. Is another experience that actually affects the children and even traumatizes them. And I have seen people, I've met people who are born prematurely. And you realize in their life, if you look at them clearly, they start a degree program, it ends prematurely. They start marriage, and shortly before they get married, it ends prematurely. They get a baby, and before the baby is born prematurely, or the baby dies. And so you realize there are a lot of premature things that are happening in their lives. And when you see such experiences, you need to explore right back what happened before the child was born and what is happening now. I know many psychologists may not buy this idea, but I have been in the healing ministry where you work with people and heal their childhood, and then get to a point that you realize this person was wounded immediately, because they were born prematurely. And others are born also with the cord around their neck, with the umbilical cord around their neck. And that's already a sign of rejection, that life is not embracing you. Life is not accepting you. And so what we need to do is to direct prayers of inner healing into those parts, and also walk through the child, if it's a child or it's an adult, walk them through the process so that they get healed completely. And so these are things that may not be documented so much, but actually they are very, very important areas that we need to focus on. Something also that is also important is the mother can labor so much before the child is born. And when they labor so much, also that can make the baby tired, and so they are born tired, already their system exposed to tiredness, and so they become impatient in life because they are tired, they want to do this, but there are a lot of anxieties and all that. And there is one particular person actually in the Bible that was born that way, and the account is given in First Chronicles chapter 4, verses 10. You can read from verse 9. Jabez was the most distinguished of the brothers. His mother had named him Jabez, saying, I bore him with pain. That's what the mother said, that he bore his son with pain. But this is what Jabez did in verse 10. Jabez prayed to the God of Israel, oh, that you may truly bless me and extend my boundaries. Help me and make me free of misfortune without pain. And God granted his prayer. So he got to know, he realized that the mother gave him a name, Jabez, and Jabez meant pain. And he knew there was no way he was going to run away from that pain in the whole of his life. He knew that his life was to go to become a misfortune, a life full of misfortunes, for a life full of pain, a life full of suffering. And that's why in verse 10 he says, he prayed, he said, "Oh God of Israel, that you could bless me, extend my boundaries, and give me a life free of misfortune and pain." And we are told that God granted that prayer. So he realized that if he continues that way, then his life was to be full of pain. And how many times when we are naming our children, we give them all manner of names. I have seen people called Kenyua. Kenyua, where I come from, these are people drink. Kenyua is a big drinker. It's not just any other person. It's one who really drinks heavily. And you realize that this Kenyua becomes an addict and really drinks a lot. Or other people are called, for example, Jinatu Surambaya or something like that. And you realize someone really... So all those things begin happening. And so whoever you meet, it doesn't matter, they don't like you. You are not liked anywhere. Or you're given a name like rejection. There is a guy, I don't remember exactly his name. He trying to insult King David. He was insulting King David. He wanted him to beat him up. And actually, when you look at that name, maybe you can check in Samuel. I'm not sure exactly which Samuel, I think 2nd Samuel, but I can't tell exactly the chapter. It says that his name means fool. So this guy was a fool, and that's why he could do such things to a king. And by then, kings are people that you couldn't even get closer to them. But this guy insults the king, and his name, we are told, he was a fool. And there are many other people, anyway, we have been given their names in the Bible, that actually the outcome of their behavior was like their name. Myself, I'm called Kirinya. Kirinya means my grandfather was a very strong man, like really energetic and big, of course. Now, when you look at me, I have all those descriptions, but also I believe that I have the power of God. So Kirinya is someone who has a lot of power, a lot of strength. So I believe also there is power of God working in me, and so my name works. But also there is an element of my name, Silas. Silas is called man of the forest. Silvanus in Latin. And Silvanus is man of the forest. And I know my primary years, I actually almost got lost in the forest. I loved being in the forest. I loved, taking care of my father's flock in the forest. Many times I dropped like 3 years from school, like 3 complete years, so that I can go and take my care of my father's flock. So I was lost in the forest. So somehow if you look at that name, you may realize there are some similarities. There is people like Barnabas. Barnabas is called the son of encouragement in the Bible, if you read Acts of Apostles. And actually, they always say, we sent Paul, Silas, and Barnabas to go and encourage them, brethren. Because this guy was an encourager. So if you look at these names and you try to check what this name means, it's important you really follow them and name your children names that are good. That's why even the church, you come with a certain name and they tell you, no, that name, take a name of a saint, so that you actually become like a saint. If you look at Mother Teresa, again, is, you look at Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus, they have similarities in the way of their spirituality. And so it's important we really focus on that when we are naming our children. So I will take a short break, and then after the break, I'll be able to continue with the other steps. So stay on. Welcome back, dear viewers. Welcome back, welcome back. So today we are touching on a very interesting topic, and this is part 2 of the Healing the Whole Person. And we are focusing on something very interesting, and that is what happens at birth or the few years after birth, what we are calling the formative years. The psychologists will call them formative years up to 5 years. But for us in the church, we actually extend all the way to the age of reason, which is now 7 years, when the child or a human being, they can begin now thinking for themselves. So during these years are very, very, very important, and prepared a lot. But I'm already feeling like I may not be able to cover everything. Maybe I will continue this next Monday. But for today, it's really important we go on with this. Now, the other thing, so I finished by talking about the name, so it's important. You actually name your children, give them good names, give them good names. The other thing that is really essential to focus on is children who are rejected by their father. Their child is conceived or even born, and then the dad says, no, this is not my child. And I've seen that happening. There is one family that I know that before marriage, the mom wanted to have 3 children. The dad wanted to have 1 child, but they never communicated to each other. And so later on, what happened is they got a child, and the firstborn was 14 years, without any other sibling. And so the mom decided, no, I want to get another child. And so told the husband, but the husband said no. And finally, she went ahead anyway, and somehow, without the husband aware, they got a baby. And from the moment she said that she hadn't conceived, the husband never spoke to her, even a word, all the way, and carrying the baby through the pregnancy, and then delivered the baby. And the moment the baby was delivered, the dad said, you move to the other room. That means he never wanted even to be in the same room with that child. They had to move to a different room and stayed there. And when the child was 5 years is when now the dad started talking to the child, and trying to win the love of a child. But the child, even up to today, does not like the father, never loves the father. And it's a struggle in the family. And you can see the dad loving the firstborn and almost not loving the secondborn. So that rejection actually follows the life of a child through and through. And if you look at it clearly, I don't know how you explain it, but for me I can explain it spiritually, but also what I said, that our senses are able to code our experiences. If I put it that way, then it's very clear. And that's why we are told very well that children who are born and rejected by their fathers, they are likely to be rejected wherever they find themselves. And even they themselves do not experience the love, the genuine love of people. Even when you love them so much, you realize that they do not really feel the love. Like you have loved them this much, and you can tell. Like you're in a relationship, you have bought them flowers, you have taken them out for their birthdays, you have taken them to places where you really enjoy your lives, holidays and whatever. You have bought them the best car and all these other things, but finally they still tell you a simple thing of rejection, a simple indicator that may seem like you're rejecting them. They tell you don't love them. For example, you may tell them, today, this Saturday, I will not go with you to your friends. I am traveling with my friend. I am visiting a friend. We are going for hiking. Just that very simple, sense of saying no, that makes them tell you, you don't love me and would rather divorce because you love your friends more than you love me. Now, that is not an event that would warrant actually divorce. But you see, someone is already rejected within them, and so if you reject them that they were rejected by their dad, like they were rejected by their mother, then they suffer that rejection through and through. And so it's clear. And because even from the Bible anyway, even God acknowledges that it's possible for parents actually to reject their children. If you can read the word of God from Isaiah 49, verses 15 is very clear. It says that, can a mother forget her infant, but without tenderness, be without tenderness for the child from her womb? Even should she forget, I will never forget you. can a mother forget her infant, be without tenderness for the child of her womb? Even should she forget, I will never forget you. And that is your healing, actually. If you can take that verse, it heals you if you're going through this. And when we talk of healing the inner child, I'm not saying that you must be a child to heal this. Some of us are struggling with rejection at the 50, at the 70. Yesterday, I met a lady with 70 years. 70 years. And we are talking and she tells me, my mom does not love me. My mom does not accept me. My mom doesn't want me at all. She is 70. The mother is 90 something. And she still feels rejected. She is still craving for the mother's love. You know? It's something that actually we should all realize how serious it is. That we need to address those areas of the inner child so that we can come out and become actually the people that God wanted us to be. The people that God ordained us to be. And that's what he's telling us today. Even if there are those moments of rejection, I will not reject you. And actually, if you are rejected and you are grappling with rejection, the best thing for you is take that verse. It is Isaiah 49. Take verse 15. Read it. Towards the end it says, I will not. And when God says, I will not, he will always do what he says. Actually, if you read this word in Joshua, chapter 22, I think, or 21 there, verses 45, it is very clear. It says that whatever promise God made to the house of Israel, he fulfilled it. Not even one of his promises that he did not fulfill. And again, he says he's not a human being like us to lie. So whatever it is that he says, he's not entertaining us. And that's why, for me, I take scripture seriously. When I read the one that speaks about me, I take it seriously. Because I know God is not an entertainer, that he will come and entertain us with his word or give us false promises. When he says, I won't be with you, he actually means that literally. And so you will feel rejected. You need to go through therapy. You need to go through inner healing. There are some programs that I've seen, very beautiful programs, organized by the Catholic Charismatic Renewal. They are called Life in the Spirit Seminars. Life in the Spirit Seminars. Recently I had Pope John and Pope Paul, all the way actually from John Paul II, and also Pope Benedict, and then lastly Pope Francis. I heard him saying the other day that he is commending that all the parishes, all the seminaries, and all the teaching institutions to actually have Life in the Spirit seminars for the people. Now, what happens in those seminars, what I've noticed is, like for example, the first thing they teach is that God the Father loves you personally. That's the first thing. You know, that's interesting, that God the Father loves you personally, such that even if there was no one else in the world, the Father would have still allowed his Son to come and die for you and for me. What does that mean? It gives me a lot of encouragement to realize it doesn't matter what I'm grappling with, it doesn't matter how much I'm rejected, that one day I'll be forgiven. And I went through those seminars when I was growing up, and I was struggling a lot with the love of my father. Because my dad really hated me, did not like me at all. Maybe because of my behaviors, but I think also he was alcoholic and many other things, which I've shared elsewhere. And so I didn't like him. Like every time I met him, I would run away. And I didn't know why. And I would run away even for a whole month and just be away with friends, with neighbors, with whoever wanted to accept me or welcome me in their homes. And so when I went through these seminars, I noticed that God the Father loves you personally. That's the moment I felt the Father's love, like what he's saying in Isaiah 49 verse 15. And I started experiencing the love of the Father. We reconciled with my own father, and he changed. He became a wonderful man. And even by the time the Lord called him in 2013, he was a man really living a good life, a life that you can say is the life of a Christian. So it's important we go through this inner healing so that we can heal those parts of us. Now, also the mother can die at birth. If the mother dies at birth, again, that predisposes you to a lot of pain. I have a young girl I've been supporting, working with her, and she tells me every time she sees a young girl walking with a mother, she feels like there is already pain in her heart. She actually remembers instantly that this is what she missed because the mom died when she was 2 years. Now I can imagine those whose mothers die when they are being born. Like the mother dies and then you survive. You know what children feel? Like I am the one who killed the mother. And sometimes there are even some families that people have told you are the one who killed our mother. Like every member of the family feels you are the one who killed the mother. And so you carry that guilt of a mantra The whole of your life. Imagine you're 5 years, you're called a murderer. 10 years, you're a murderer. You're now 50 years, you're still feeling like you're the one who killed the mother because your mom was trying to deliver you. So that is pain that we can live with, and the pain that can follow us the rest of our lives. And so we need to work on that. Of course, being rejected by the siblings. There is an account given in Genesis chapter 25, verses 21 to 23. I don't have time to read about it, but that's the earliest rivalry, sibling rivalry that was recorded in the Bible. That the children were fighting in the womb. I am not very sure whether it's Esau and Jacob. Yeah, they were fighting in the womb. And so in that account, you see children are fighting already in the womb of their mother, you know. And of course, we see that even those fights, they go on. And if you read, the history says that the sibling of rivalry is the bloodiest war, in the world. That when those who are related by blood fight, they shed a lot of blood. And so that's why it's essential also to work on those areas. And the other thing is violence in the family. Of course, we know many families, there is a lot of violence. People are fighting, especially during this time of pandemic. And again, that is impacting the children, because children now grow up knowing that the world is a world of violence. And so wherever they find themselves is either they become violent themselves, or they become passive and afraid and fearful and a lot of anxiety, insecure. And so when they become insecure, remember the human mind. The human mind that we use when we are going through an experience is the human mind we carry with us wherever we go. We carry that human mind in school. We carry that human mind in the church. So if I was violated as a child and I become a priest, I am sure 100% in no healing that has taken place, I will violate others as well. I won't be a person of aggressiveness. And I have seen that. I have met people who are really, really aggressive, and they are priests. Like actually, literally, they beat you up in case if there is anything, whatever, some small, misunderstanding, they fight. And I've seen, I think you know also even from the news that there are those who have shot the others. And I know some, really, And so it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't respect your title. The moment you go through inner wounds, you perpetuate that with your mind, wherever you find yourself. Because when you grow up, you don't realize that you are away, you are out of that environment. Because it is that environment which shaped your mind, which shaped your way of thinking, which shaped your resilience. So when you go on with your life and you face any struggle in life, you deal with it the way you dealt with that primary experience with your parents, with the violence that was taking place at home. The other thing is poor parenting. I wish really I had a lot of time to talk about this, but when we talk about poor parenting, there are 4 parenting styles that we talk about as psychologists. One is authoritative. Now, authoritative is the worst parenting because there is no democracy. You don't care about the children. You don't care about the interests of the children. You don't care what children or opinion of the children. Basically, you force them into doing what you think is right for them. And so you do not negotiate with them. You don't even explain things to them. And these children grow up either violent to themselves because they believe for you to survive, you must give your rule and you must follow your rule to the end. And so no one can give you an opinion that actually it looks like better than yours. You will try to push your opinion to the end. And if someone is not agreeing with you, you bring in violence so that now you're able to beat them up, and that's how you resolve your issues. Or the other way, where you lose your creativity and you become withdrawn and passive. Whatever other people decide, that is what will happen to me. These are children who grow in teenagehood and adolescent, and even they are grown up, and you realize it's peer influence. Because they themselves, they go according to the current. Whatever is there, they go for that because they are parents who are authoritative. Authoritative. Then we have authoritarian parenting, which is the best, where parents are democratic, and maybe I will touch on that later on. There's another one we call neglecting. Parents are not there at all. And then they are passive, where parents are very good and calm and whatever, but there are no boundaries. And sometimes if there are boundaries, they are very, very vague kind of boundaries. The other thing, which I think I will assign it another day, is sexual assault or sexual violence or rape. Those incidences also affect lives of children, even when they are grown up. They will get into marriage and they are still hurt. They will become religious sisters and they are still hurt. They will become bishops and priests and they are still hurt. And they themselves can become perpetrators of sexual violence. Or they will hate the other gender, and they can get even to a point of murder. And actually, it is recorded in Genesis chapter 34, where Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, was actually raped by a neighbor, a son called Shechem. And actually, the brothers of Dinah decided to go and kill him. Now Shechem is done, and all the men in the village, that city. So it results always, oftentimes, to that revenge. And even when Tamar also, the son of the daughter of David, was raped by Amnon. What happened is that Absalom is our brother now went and killed Amnon. So that rape always presents a lot of pain, and most of the people who have gone through rape when they are growing up, most of them, they have mental issues, depression, bipolar disorder, substance use, schizophrenia, and many other manifestations that you cannot explain, and some of them even seem to be demonic. And so when people get wounded when they are young, there is a lot that can happen. I feel like this topic is so huge. Maybe I need a lot of more time to be able to address it. And so I have petitioned it actually because I was to deal with the whole thing today, but I realize there's a lot. So in the next session on Monday, I will be able to go on with the same topic and see what we can do. But one thing I can touch on, because I know now you're already asking questions, how can I get the healing? Go through therapy, you will be helped. And someone would ask, how will I know that I was rejected by parents before I was born? If your parents are there, talk to them. If their relatives that are there, talk to them. Just get to know what was happening when, Mom, you're carrying me when I was a baby. Talk to your mother. She will tell you. Talk to your dad. They will tell you. Talk to your grandma. They will tell you. And you will know that actually maybe some of these things began there. Or when you're growing up, you went through experiences in life, maybe poverty, that in a way it wounded you. And so it's important you go through counseling, but also spiritual healing. Spiritual healing helps a lot. Because what I have come to realize is when you are wounded, the devil also, because remember the devil is behind any pain. Whatever pain human beings experience, the devil is always behind it. Because his work is to kill, destroy, to steal, kill, and destroy. So when you meet a human being who rapes you, that human being is already becoming an agent of the devil. And so what the devil does from that wood, he will bring in some demons who will perpetuate that wood. That's why, for example, when you're rejected, then you will reject other people as well, or if you're rejected, even when everybody else loves you. So that's why it's important then to go through a process of inner healing so that you can be healed and your life will be restored. Thank you very much. So I hope to see you again next Monday. Share this with your friends, and let us see how we are able to touch the lives of people and heal others. All of us are wounded healers. If we can allow ourselves to heal, I can assure you God has already prepared you enough with the skills of how to help others, because you yourself, you have gone through the process of woundedness, and so you have healed. You know the journey, the route through healing that people can follow. And you become a wonderful helper and a servant of God also in the vineyard. Thank you. God bless you.